I'm Mark Small of Civil Discourse Now. I'm on streaming right now, overcoming technological barriers. I wanted to make sure I got on this evening to let people know that we are still here trying to get on with tech. Some things have happened in the last few weeks in electoral politics that are rather disturbing. We're looking at November 2024 as a really maybe the last election we have. That sounds like hyperbole. It's not. When you have people who are threatening physically people at polling places, or when you have an individual who tried to overthrow the government of the United States on January 6, 2021, that means that we've got some problems here in our electoral system. Now, that's an interesting thing about January 6th, 2021. So let's go through some variations on that. One, was it real? Were those people out there? Were they actually demonstrating and throwing things at the Capitol and forcing their way into the building itself? If they were, fine. You want to make an argument for that? I'm just talking about what the reality was. Were they there? Were they doing that? There are some people who say no, that was a false flag, or that it was all a put up thing with the FBI, CIA, whoever the hell it was, and they're being framed for it. That all those people out there, they were somehow part of a false flag operation, really didn't happen. Or you have a would-be lieutenant governor of the state of Indiana, Micah Beckwith, who talked with the Lord. And the Lord said, Micah, I sent those riots to Washington. That was my hand in it. Now, any one of those is rather, it's kind of a unique set of circumstances. But if you're going to say one thing, you got to stick with it all the way. Now, when I see some bastard walking through the Capitol building carrying a Confederate flag, what battle flag? Army of Northern Virginia, fine, Confederate flag. I see somebody walking through the Capitol like that. That's absurd. That's treasonous. That's what those bastards did in the Civil War. They lost that because they wanted to maintain slavery. That was really their goal. So you can't have all three playing at once. Well, was it a false flag operation? Not if you're bragging about it. Now, here's the other part. Was it the Lord? I don't really think that that's a good thing to argue for Micah Beckwith, because he's wanting to reach electoral office. He hasn't been able to do so far. And he wants to do that. And then what? Anytime he has an issue he wants to advance, God speaks to him. And he'll tell us what God wants him to tell us what to do. That's not good. That's dictatorial. But that brings me to my question. What is freedom? I'm listening to people on interviews who are at, ironically, Trump rallies saying that they don't see what's wrong with Putin. Putin's a good guy. Maybe we need a dictator. Well, don't preach land of the free and at the same time talk about what a great guy Putin is. Putin's a dictator. He's a murderer. Now, if you want to value that in a leader, because you got to break some eggs to make, get some scrambled eggs or some crap, an omelet, that's it. You can do that. Just don't do it at the same time talking about freedom. That's something that's a little tough to argue, because if you want a dictator, that's inherently the opposite of what freedom means. It means that we no longer have a democracy. Now, what the hell happened in this country that makes people on the far right so scared now that this is the end of time? We gotta get somebody like Trump in there. Trump has committed treason. He was put into office gratis of the Russians. It's not a Russian card. That's an actual thing that occurred. The rest of the world knows it. Putin makes fun of us because of it. So, what is freedom? Freedom means to be able to openly discuss things. You listen to both sides or all sides, because a lot of times an issue doesn't have just two sides. There are different views on things that make up a complex problem. Which brings me back to my buddy Beckwith. Now, Beckwith tells people don't read university or college professors' work on constitutional history, because they've got a secular bias. Groovy. How about why not? How's the bias affect what they're saying? Then he says, only rely upon primary sources. And this is what gets me. I've challenged him on that. He won't reply. And obvious reasons. He said, well, primary sources for our founding documents consist of Declaration of Independence, Articles of Confederation, Federalist Papers, debates before the ratification conventions of the states. Closest you get to any mention of God in the Declaration of Independence is endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Creator. No mention of God or Jesus Christ. No mention of them in the Articles of Confederation. Now, if this is a country founded on Christianity, there would have been mention there, because other countries had theocracies or had the church part of the government. We didn't have anything like that. When they got to the convention, the Constitutional Convention of 1787, partway through, it was like towards the end of June, Benjamin Franklin moved that every session should start with prayer. And he was a deist, but it was never voted on, and they never had a prayer. After the convention, somebody asked Alexander Hamilton, why wasn't there any mention of God? Hamilton said, we forgot. But the state ratification conventions are important because those reveal what the thoughts were of people who were voting whether to ratify the Constitution. North Carolina was unique in that it had two conventions. In the first one, the Constitution was voted down. The reason was God was not mentioned. Now, in the debates, and you can read those debates, they're in Eliot's debates. That's a 5-volume set. You can see it online. It's from the Library of Congress. During the North Carolina debates, the first convention, the other side didn't argue, well, yeah, God's in it. They didn't do that. The argument was why there shouldn't be a mention of God and why everybody has an equal right to believe and worship as they wish, and there should be no participation of religion in the state. Then everybody else had ratified except Rhode Island. They were kind of an outlier. And so there was a second convention, and they went ahead and voted for it. So those are all very telling about why there is no God, no Jesus Christ in our government. And Beckwith can't answer that, and he won't. Now, if he's going to say that this is some kind of God that's talking to him, that's a bunch of crap. There is no God telling people what every issue is. If you're going to buy that, you're going to buy just about anything. And that comes down to what is freedom. Freedom is to listen and to speak, but not to force other people to do what you want because, hey, the guy that you wanted as lieutenant governor has somebody talk to him, and I'd like to hear a recording. Mark Sloan, Civil Discourse Now. Take care.